In the hut, Odysseus and the worthy swineherd were now preparing their breakfast in the dawn light, after stirring up the fire and sending the herdsmen off with the pigs to the pastures. As Telemachus approached the hut, the baying dogs began wagging their tails, but they did not bark. Odysseus noticed them wagging their tails, and the sound of footsteps also came to his ears. He turned to Eumaeus with winged words.
Eumaeus, you have a visitor. He must be a friend of yours or someone familiar here, for the dogs are fawning instead of barking, and I can hear his footsteps.
The last words were not yet out of his mouth when his own son appeared in the doorway. Eumaeus jumped up in amazement, and the bowls in which he had been busy mixing the sparkling wine tumbled out of his grasp. Running forward to meet his master, he kissed his forehead, his fine eyes, and both of his hands, while the tears streamed down his cheeks. Like a fond father welcoming back his son after 9 years abroad, his only son, the apple of his eye, for whom he has sacrificed much, the admirable swineherd threw his arms round Telemachus, the godlike youth, and showered kisses on him as though he had just escaped from death.
"So you are back, Telemachus, light of my eyes,"
he said in tears, and his words flew.
"and I thought I would never see you again, once you had sailed for Pylos. Come in, dear child."
They all call him dear child, but he's 20.
"And let me feast my eyes on the wanderer just home. We herdsmen see little of you here on the farm. You are always in the town. It seems as though you found it amusing to watch the pernicious gang of suitors."
"Just as you say, old friend," said Telemachus. "I came here because of you. I wanted to see you myself and find out from you whether my mother is still in the palace or whether she has married again and Odysseus's bed is empty and hung with dusty cobwebs."
"Certainly she is still at home,"
said the prince among swineherds.
"She has a patient heart, though her eyes are never free from tears as the slow nights and days pass sorrowfully by."
As he spoke, he took his bronze spear from him, and Telemachus crossed the stone threshold into the hut. At his entrance, Odysseus, his father, rose to give him his seat, but Telemachus from the other side of the room checked him with a gesture and said, "Don't get up, stranger. Somewhere in our farm we'll find something to sit on, and here is the man to arrange it." So Odysseus sat down again, and the swineherd made a pile of green brushwood for Telemachus, with a fleece spread on top. And there Odysseus's dear son sat down. I imagine Odysseus is looking at Telemachus in a kind of wonderment way, whereas Telemachus is probably thinking, "Why is that weird man staring at me?" Eumaeus then put beside them platters of roast meat that had been left over from their meal of the previous day, and with eager hospitality piled baskets high with bread, and mixed them some sweet wine in an olive wood bowl. This done, he himself sat down opposite the godlike Odysseus, and they helped themselves to the good food in front of them. When they had satisfied their hunger and thirst, Telemachus turned to the worthy swineherd and said, "Old friend, where does this guest of yours come from? Some ship's crew must have brought him here. How did it happen, and who did they claim they were? I am quite sure he didn't walk to Ithaca." Then you, Eumaeus the swineherd, said in reply,
"My child, you shall have nothing but the truth from me. He claims to be a native of the large island of Crete, and says he has tramped out and says he has tramped as an outcast through half the towns in the world. That seems to be his destiny. But quite recently he managed to escape from a Thesprotian ship and came to my farm here. I will hand him over to you to deal with as you like, for he has decided to throw himself on your mercy."
"Eumaeus, this is very mortifying to me," the thoughtful Telemachus replied. "How can I possibly receive the stranger in my house? In the first place, I myself am young, and I do not yet have the physical strength to cope with anyone who might care to pick a quarrel with me. Then again, my mother is in two minds whether to stay at home and keep house for me, out of respect for her husband's bed and public opinion, or whether to go away with that one of her suitors who is most distinguished and most lavish with wedding presents. However, as the stranger has sought refuge in your home, I will give him a good cloak and tunic, a two-edged sword and sandals for his feet, and send him wherever he wishes to go. But if you want to, keep him here at the farm and look after him. I'll send you the clothes and all the food he'll need, so that he shan't be a burden to you and your men. But I should not like to permit him to come down there and meet the suitors. Their reckless violence goes beyond all bounds, and if they insulted him, as I fear is likely, that would distress me deeply. But it is difficult for a man to do anything single-handed against a crowd, however strong he may be. They have an overwhelming advantage.
I feel sure, my friend,
The steadfast good Odysseus put in,
that you will allow me to join in your discussion. My indignation has been deeply stirred by what I have learned from you both of the outrageous conduct of these suitors, which you, such a fine person, have had to endure. Tell me, do you take this lying down? Or have the local people been turned into enemies of yours through hearing an oracle from the gods? Or have you been let down by your brothers, whom a man can normally rely on in a feud, however deadly it becomes? I wish I were as young as you, or as young as I feel.
Considering that he's disguised as an old man, yeah.
Or that I were the noble Odysseus' son, or Odysseus himself, back from his travels. I would be ready here and now to let anyone cut my head off if I didn't go straight down to the palace of Laertes, heir of Odysseus, and kill the lot of them. And if they did overwhelm me by numbers, single-handed as I would be, I would rather die by the sword in my own house than witness the perpetual repetition of these outrages. The brutal treatment of visitors, men hauling the maids about for their foul purposes in that lovely house, wine running like water, and those villains gorging themselves just for the sport of the thing, on, and not likely to get anywhere.
My friend, said the thoughtful Telemachus, I will tell you the truth of the matter. The people as a whole have no grievance and no hostility toward me, nor have I been let down by my brothers, whom a man can normally rely on in a feud, however deadly it becomes. For Zeus has made only sons the rule in our family. Laertes was the only son of Arcesius, and Odysseus of Laertes, while I was the only son who had been born to Odysseus when he left his home. And little joy he had of me. As a result, the house is infested by our enemies, of all the island chieftains in Dulichium, in Same, and in wooded Zacynthus, and of all the princes here in rocky Ithaca, there is not one that isn't courting my mother and plundering my house. As for her, she cannot bring herself to the final step of rejecting all the suitors or accepting one of them, though she hates the idea of remarrying. Meanwhile, they are eating me out of house and home, and they'll soon destroy me. However, this is all in the lap of the gods. And now, old friend, will you go quickly down and tell my wise mother Penelope that she has me safely back from Pylos? I will wait here till you return after delivering your message, which is for her ears alone. Let none of the others hear it. There are plenty of them plotting to harm me. Then you, Eumaeus, the swineherd, said in reply,
Agreed. Understood. A word to the wise. But give me clear instructions on this point. Shall I make one journey of it and tell Laertes the news too? The poor man, for all his great grief for Odysseus, used till lately to keep an eye on the farm, and eat and drink with the farmhands when the spirit moved him. But ever since you sailed for Pylos, they say that he has not so much as taken a bite or a drink, nor cast an eye over the work on the farm, but sits there moaning and groaning in his misery. with the flesh withering on his bones.
That can't be helped, replied the prudent Telemachus. I'm sorry, but we can't do anything for my grandfather just now. If men could have anything for the asking, my first wish would be for my father's return. However, deliver your message and come straight back. Don't go wandering about the countryside after Laertes, but ask my mother to send her housekeeper quickly and secretly. She could tell the old man. His words spurred on the swineherd, who picked up his sandals, bound them on his feet, and set off for the town. His departure from the farm was not unobserved by Athena, who now approached in the guise of a tall, beautiful, and accomplished woman, and, halting just outside the door of the hut, made herself visible to Odysseus, though Telemachus did not see her or become aware of her presence. It is by no means to everyone that the gods grant a clear sight of themselves. Only Odysseus and the dogs saw her, and the dogs did not bark, but ran whimpering in panic to the other side of the farm. Athena gestured with her eyebrows. Odysseus saw this, and leaving the house went through the walled yard and presented himself before her. Athena spoke. Son of Laertes, favourite of Zeus, Odysseus of the nimble wits, speak now to Telemachus and hide nothing, so that the pair of you can plot the downfall and death of the suitors, and then make your way to the great town. I will not leave you alone for long. I am eager for the fight. As she spoke, Athena touched him with her golden wand. First, she clothed him in a fresh cloak and tunic, then restored his stature and his youthful vigour. His bronze tan returned, his jaw filled out, and the beard grew dark on his chin. Her work done, Athena disappeared, and Odysseus went back into the hut. His son gave him a look of amazement, then withdrew his eyes for fear that he might be a god, and said with words that were winged, Stranger, you are not the same now as before. Your clothes are different, your complexion is changed. Surely you are one of the gods who live in the broad sky. Be gracious to us, and we will make you pleasing sacrifices and offerings of wrought gold. Have mercy on us.
I am no god,
said the patient, good Odysseus.
Why do you take me for an immortal? But I am your father, on whose account you have endured so much sorrow and trouble and suffered persecution at men's hands.
With that he kissed his son, and the tears ran down his cheeks to the ground. Till then he had kept a firm control on his feelings. But Telemachus could not yet accept that it was his father, and said, You are not my father. You are not Odysseus. Some divine power is playing a trick to make my grief all the more bitter. No mortal man could do such a thing by design, though I know that any god who wished could easily make a man young or old. Only a moment ago you were an old man in shabby clothes, and now you look like one of the gods who live in the wide heavens.
Telemachus,
replied the resourceful Odysseus,
you ought not to feel any excessive surprise at your father's homecoming, or be so taken aback. Be quite certain of this. No second Odysseus will return. No, I am the man, just as you see me, back in my own country, in the 20th year of misfortune and wandering. As for these changes in me, they are the work of the warrior goddess Athena, who can do anything, and make me look as she wishes, at one moment like a beggar, and at the next like a young man finely dressed. It is easy for the gods in heaven to glorify or debase a man.
Odysseus sat down, and Telemachus flung his arms round his noble father's neck and burst into tears. I actually know how that feels. And now a passionate longing for tears arose in them both, and they cried aloud piercingly, and more convulsively than birds of prey, vultures or crooked-clawed eagles, bereaved when villagers have robbed the nest of their unfledged young. So did these two let the piteous tears run streaming from their eyes, and sunset would have found them still weeping if Telemachus had not suddenly asked his father a question.
"But, my dear father," he said, "what ship can have brought you to Ithaca at this time? And who were the men on board? It is obvious that you did not come on foot."
My son,
said the patient noble Odysseus.
I will tell you exactly how it was. The Phaeacians brought me here. Those renowned sailors who provide any stranger who lands on their coasts with his passage home. Well, they brought me across the sea on one of their fast ships and landed me in Ithaca. I was asleep the whole time. They gave me splendid presents too, bronze and vast quantities of gold and woven cloth, all of which, with help from the gods, lie hidden in a cave. Finally, I came up here at Athena's prompting so that we could plan the destruction of our enemies. Now count and list them for me one by one so that I may know exactly who and how many they are. Then I will turn my mind to deciding whether we too could take them on by ourselves or whether we should seek help.
"Father,"
the prudent Telemachus replied,
"I have always heard of your great reputation as a fighter in combat and tactician in council. But this time you speak of the impossible. I am overwhelmed. 2 men could not possibly take on..."
"Excuse me! Right in the middle of a father-son reunion. Where was I?"
2 men could not possibly take on so many determined fighters. There are not just 10 suitors or 20, but many times more than that. I can tell you their strength here and now. From Dulichium, there are 52, the pick of its young men, with 6 serving men. From Same, there are 24, and from Zacynthus, and from Zacynthus, 20 noblemen. From Ithaca itself, a dozen of its best, and with the Medon, the herald, and an inspired minstrel, besides 2 servants, expert carvers. If we meet them inside the palace in full force, I am afraid it may be you who pay a cruel and terrible price for the outrages you have come to avenge. So think hard about an ally you can find, who will fight heart and soul on your side."
I will tell you,
said the steadfast Odysseus.
listen carefully, and ask yourself whether Athene, with Father Zeus, will be help enough. Or must I find some other ally?
"The champions you mention are a powerful couple,"
said the circumspect Telemachus.
"They may sit up there in the clouds, but they rule the whole world of men and gods."
And so,
said the patient good Odysseus,
when the scene is set in the palace for ordeal by battle between us and the suitors, it will not be long before those 2 are in the thick of the fight. However, at the first sign of dawn, you go home and rejoin those arrogant suitors. Later, the swineherd will bring me down to the city disguised as a wretched old beggar. If I meet with insults in the house, you must steel your heart to my maltreatment. And even if they haul me out of the place by the feet or throw things at me, you will have to look on and bear it. Talk to them soothingly and ask them to give up their wild behavior. They won't listen to you, of course, but their day of judgment is at hand. And here is something else, remember it. When that clever strategist Athene prompts me, I shall give you a nod. Directly you see the signal, gather up the weapons of war that are in the hall and stow them away in a corner of a room upstairs, all of them. And when the suitors miss them and question you, you must lull their suspicions with some plausible tale. You can say, I rescued them from the smoke since they look quite different from when Odysseus left them and sailed for Troy. The fire had got at them and damaged them badly. There's another reason too, a more serious one, which Zeus put in my mind. that you might start quarrelling after drinking too much and wound each other, thus spoiling your festivities and disgracing yourselves as suitors. There's a force in iron that lures men on, but just for us two, leave a couple of the swords and spears and 2 leather shields ready to hand, where we can make a dash and pick them up. Pallas Athene and Zeus the wise counsellor will lull the suitors when the time comes. One more word. Pay close attention. If you really are my son and have my blood in your veins, see that not a soul hears that Odysseus is back. Tell neither Laertes, nor the swineherd, nor any of the household staff, nor Penelope herself. You and I alone will discover what the attitude of the women is, and we might also sound out 1 or 2 of the men servants to find out which are loyal and respect us, and which have no concern for us and look down on you as you are now.
Father, his noble son replied, you will come to know in due course what I'm made of, and I am certainly not stupid, but I feel that we would gain nothing by acting as you suggest, and I urge you to think once more. You will waste a lot of time going round the various farms and sounding out the men one by one, while the suitors are in our house blithely eating up our stores in their insolent way, stinting themselves of nothing. I certainly think you ought to find out which of the women servants are guilty or innocent of disloyalty toward you, but as to the men, I am against going round the farms to sound them out, and would like to postpone that till later, if it is really true that you have had some intimation of the will of Zeus who bears the aegis. So father and son discussed the situation, and the good ship that had brought Telemachus and his men from Pylos began to approach the harbour of Ithaca. When they reached its deep water, they dragged her up on the beach. Their eager squires carried off their equipment and removed the valuable gifts to Clytius's house. They then dispatched a messenger to Odysseus's palace to tell the wise Penelope that Telemachus had gone to the country and had ordered them to sail round to the city, so that the good queen might not take alarm and start weeping. As it happened, this messenger and the worthy swineherd, conveying the same news to the lady, met on the way. But when they reached the royal palace, the messenger blurted out his news among all the women servants.
Your son is back, my queen.
The swineherd, however, sought Penelope's own ear and told her everything her son had instructed him to say. His message faithfully delivered, he turned his back on the palace and its precincts and returned to his pigs. To the suitors, the news came as a shock that cast a gloom over their spirits. They streamed out of the hall through the high-walled courtyard, and there, in front of the gates, they held a meeting. Eurymachus, son of Polybus, was the first to speak.
My friends,
He said,
Telemachus, in his arrogance, has certainly scored a success by safely bringing off this expedition that we swore would come to nothing. But come, let us launch the best ship available, collect a crew of oarsmen, and quickly send word to our friends out there that they must come home at once.
He was still speaking when Amphinomus turned round, caught sight of their ship from where he sat. She was riding in the deep harbour, and he could see some men taking down the sails, others preparing to row her in. He gave a gleeful laugh and called out to the rest,
No need to send a message now, they're back. Some god must have sent them word, or they themselves saw Telemachus' ship slip by and couldn't catch her.
At this, the whole company rose and went down to the beach. The crew made haste to drag the black ship up onto land, and eager squires carried their equipment off. The suitors then went in a body to the place of assembly, where they allowed no one else, young or old, to join them. And there Antinous, Eupeithes' son, addressed them.
Damnation take it! The gods have saved Telemachus from certain death. All day long we had a succession of scouts posted along the windy heights. We never slept ashore at night, but as soon as the sun set, we went on board and stayed at sea till dawn in the hope of catching Telemachus and finishing him off.
Have any of them considered that if they kill Penelope's son, she's going to be less inclined to marry them?
Meanwhile, some god brought him home. Telemachus must not slip through our fingers, but here and now we must think of some way of destroying him. I feel sure that while he lives we shall never bring this business of ours to a satisfactory end. He knows how to think and scheme, and the people no longer look on us with any favour at all. I suggest action before he can call a general assembly. Mark my words. He won't relax his efforts one bit, and it will be an angry man who rises up to denounce us and tell them all how we plotted his murder and then failed to catch him. They certainly won't applaud his recital of our misdeeds. In fact, they may do us considerable harm and send us into exile among the foreigners abroad. We must forestall such a move and catch him either in the country, well away from the town, or on the road. We should then have his property and estates, which we would divide fairly between us, though we might let his mother and her new husband keep the house. But if you disapprove of my suggestion, and would rather see him alive and in possession of all his inheritance, I suggest that we no longer meet here, living in luxury at his expense, but that each of us must court the Queen and make his bridal offers from his own house. She could then marry the man who offers the richest gifts and is her destined husband.
A dead silence followed this speech. It was broken at last by Amphinomus, the famous son of Lord Nisus and grandson of Odysseus. He was the leading spirit among the suitors from the corn and grasslands of Dulichium. Penelope found his conversation especially agreeable, because he was a man of principle. He now began speaking with their best interests at heart.
My friends,
He said,
I am not willing to put Telemachus to death. It is a dreadful thing to spill the blood of princes. Before all else, let us learn the gods' will. If the oracles of Almighty Zeus approve the deed, I will be his executioner myself and urge on the rest of you. But if the gods say no, I advise you to hold your hand.
They agreed with what I don't like this name, this one's really tripping me up. They agreed with what Amphinomus said, and rose straight away, went to Odysseus' palace and sat down on their polished chairs. It was at this moment that a sudden idea came to Penelope, to confront her suitors in all their brutal pride. She knew well enough that her son's murder had been plotted in the palace, for Medon the herald had heard of the plot and warned her. So now she gathered her ladies around her and went down to the hall. When she came near her suitors, the great lady drew a fold of her shining veil across her cheeks, took her stand by a pillar of the massive roof, and, turning on Antinous, lashed him with her tongue.
Antinous, you're an arrogant and evil schemer, and they say that in judgment and eloquence you're the best man among your contemporaries in Ithaca. Now I know you're not. You covetous fool! How dare you plot against Telemachus' life, showing no compassion to suppliants, even though they are under Zeus's eye? It's sacrilege for someone who has received mercy to plot against someone in need of mercy. Or do you not know that your father once sought refuge here from the fury of the mob, when their blood was up because he had joined the Taphian pirates on a raid on the Thesprotians, who were at peace with us? They would have killed him and had his heart out, and helped themselves to his fortune too, had not Odysseus come to his rescue and controlled their violence. Odysseus, at whose expense you are living free, whose wife you are courting, and whose son you propose to kill. You are causing me great anguish. I command you now to put an end to all this and make the rest obey.
Eurymachus, son of Polybus, answered the queen.
Penelope,
He said,
wise daughter of Icarius, have no fear. Dismiss these terrors from your mind. The man does not exist, will not exist, and will never be born who will lay violent hands on Telemachus your son, so long as I live and am on earth to see the light of day. I assure you, and time will prove it, such a man's black blood would soon be gushing around my spear. Didn't Odysseus, the sacker of cities, befriend me too, and often take me on his knees to put a piece of roast meat in my fingers and lift the red wine to my mouth?
I'm going to guess that he was a child.
That makes Telemachus my dearest friend on earth.
Wait, you're wanting to... What's the age gap here? Anyway.
That makes Telemachus my dearest friend on earth, and I assure him he need have no fear of death at the suitors' hands. But there is no escape from what the
Dogs decree? But there is no escape from what the gods decree. These encouraging words were on his lips, but death for Telemachus was in his heart, clearly. Penelope withdrew to her splendid apartment on the upper floor, and there she wept for Odysseus, her beloved husband, till bright-eyed Athena closed her eyes in sweet sleep. That same evening, the good swineherd returned to Odysseus and his son. They had killed a yearling pig and were preparing it for supper. Athene had come up to Odysseus, Laertes' son, and touched him with her wand, changing him once more into an old man in filthy clothes. She was afraid that the swineherd would recognize him if he saw him undisguised, and being unable to keep the secret would run down to tell Penelope the news. It was Telemachus who greeted him. So here you are, my good Eumaeus. What news in the town? Are those proud suitors back from their ambush, or are they still out there watching for me on my way home? And you, Eumaeus the swineherd said in reply,
It wasn't my business to go down to the town and make inquiries about that. I was in too much of a hurry to deliver my message and get back here. And I had been joined on my way by a messenger whom your crew had sent running off to the palace. He was the first to give the news to your mother, but there's something that I do know, for I saw it with my own eyes. On my way back, I had climbed above the town as far as Hermes Hill, when I saw a ship coming into a harbour. She had a crowd of men on board, and a whole armoury of shields and two-edged spears. I took it to be them, but I cannot say for certain.
When the great Telemachus heard this, he glanced at his father with a smile, which he was careful to hide from the swineherd. They had now finished preparing the meal, so they sat down and thoroughly enjoyed their supper together. When their thirst and hunger were satisfied, they thought of their beds and accepted the gift of sleep.